What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Al, helping you start your week with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. The two main opposition parties here in Taiwan have met to discuss forming a coalition. And while they have agreed on a number of shared goals, the most crucial question is still unanswered. Sally Jensen reports.
After weeks of back and forth, Taiwan's two main opposition parties are still unable to come to an agreement on forming a coalition in a bid to unseat the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, in next year's presidential elections in January. Eric Chu, the chair of the Kuomintang, or KMT, sat down with Ke Wen-je, the presidential candidate and chair of the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP. And the two sides discussed for just over an hour what forming such an opposition coalition might look like. Here's what they had to say.
如果要合作，那当然不管柯侯柯是不是在同一张选票上面，我们也是尊重国民党的意见的。对我来讲，就是说你有个公平的双方可以接受的办法，那就可以了。
They agreed on a number of areas they would cooperate, including working together to win the most seats in the legislature and pursuing closer, more peaceful ties with China. But there was no conclusion on perhaps the most crucial question of who would be on the presidential ticket in any opposition coalition.
我们都会希望努力达到国会的席次极大化。前一段时间拖了一段时间，有很多的民众会不耐，甚至愤怒我们这都表示抱歉。我昨天已经讲过了，我们会努力加油。
Now, as I say, these talks have been going on for weeks now, and with less than 100 days until voters go to the ballot box to choose their next leader, Chingga, the DPP's presidential candidate and the current vice president of Taiwan, is still leading in public opinion polls. And with the KMT and the TPP unable to reach an agreement on forming a coalition, this may jeopardize their chances of gaining power. Alex Chen and Sally Jensen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Meanwhile, the DPP's Lai has hit out against talk of his two main rivals joining forces. Lai says Ke and Ho's less cautious positions toward China would make an alliance between them a win for Beijing.
我们大家如果问魔镜，全世界最希望下架民进党的是谁？那魔镜一定会跟你回答，就是中国共产党。如果你再问魔镜，说最希望蓝白合的是谁？答案也一定是中国共产党。
Now, in the run-up to January's elections, activists are urging politicians to right the wrongs of Taiwan's authoritarian past. Rick Laut reports from a demonstration in the heart of the capital.
Here in the center of Taiwan's capital, Taipei, activists are demanding the removal of a statue of one of Taiwan's most controversial figures, former leader Chiang Kai-shek. They say the city should not be commemorating a brutal dictator responsible for a crackdown that left thousands dead or disappeared.
他这样子的一个违法的一个屠杀，他是一个不只是一个独裁者，他是一个。已经政治档案已经证明了的真相，他是一个杀人犯。
But others view him as a strong leader who helped Taiwan keep communist China at bay and grew the country's economy. Many people are against removing statues of Chiang. Taiwan's government has been pursuing what's known as transitional justice. They've been pardoning political prisoners, redistributing ill-gotten gains, and removing symbols of Taiwan's authoritarian past. Elections here are now just a few months away, and they could bring a change in government. Activists here are encouraging the government to finish the job they started. Chris Ma and Rick Laut in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Now, to learn more about transitional justice here in Taiwan, our reporter Bing Wong spoke to Chieting Ye, the editor of Katagalan Media.
Who is Chiang Kai-shek and why is he such a controversial figure in Taiwanese history?
When he was, while he was in Taiwan, he basically instituted martial law, creating a authoritarian state in Taiwan all the way past until his death and afterwards. And so during this time, to consolidate his rule, he basically used a lot of very oppressive policies in Taiwan, and that's why he's such a controversial issue. That's why he's such a controversial figure in Taiwan.
What's the story behind the statue in the center of Taipei, and why is it so divisive?
The Chiang Kai-shek Memorial, that's in the middle of Taipei, is built shortly after his death in the 1970s. It's basically a big monument to a figure that some sees as a ruthless dictator that caused the disappearance and the deaths of many of his political opponents. There are people who see him as a leader that they believed in. And so having a monument to somebody like this in the middle of Taipei really speaks to how much power he had while he was a dictator.
Why is this period, white terror and Chiang Kai-shek's rule, still so relevant in Taiwan, and how does it form local politics?
The political cleavage today is such that you still have people who are pro KMT and believe that for whatever wrongs that happened in the past, the KMT did create, they did do some good in Taiwan. And then there are the people who believe that, well, you can't just, the good and the bad just don't cancel each other out. You still have to answer for the crimes of the past. And I think for today, the transitional justice includes individual cases of people that were wrongly accused or oppressed or persecuted, but it also includes something as big as the state symbols in Taiwan.
Again, that was Xie Ye from Kadgala Media speaking with our reporter Bing Wong. Turning now to world news. As Israel continues its ground offensive in Gaza, the military is renewing calls for people in the territory to evacuate.
בשבועיים האחרונים אנחנו קוראים לתושבי צפון רצועת עזה והעיר עזה להתפנות דרומה באופן זמני. ההתפנות דרומה היא לביטחונם האישי. היום אנחנו מדגישים, זוהי קריאה דחופה.
Now, Israel's army has reportedly made it over 2 kilometers into Gaza. The ground offensive is part of what Israel is calling the second phase in its war against Hamas. Gaza's health ministry says nearly 8,000 people have been killed in the territory since the war began some 3 weeks ago. Protests have erupted around the world calling for an end to the hostilities. Japan's defense ministry has released new images of China's Shandong aircraft carrier entering the Western Pacific. The Shandong and 4 other warships were spotted 460 kilometers south of Japan's Okinawa Islands. Analysts say that China's military is trying to familiarize itself with the Western Pacific region. China last sent an aircraft carrier to the area in September, and at that time, more than 100 warplanes were reported flying around Taiwan. Back here in Taiwan, Taipei hosted Asia's largest Pride celebration after a productive year for LGBTQ advocates here in the country. But as Reese Ayers reports, the fight for full equality is far from over.
Just gonna stand there, watch me burn.
Over 170,000 people took to the streets of Taipei to participate in the biggest Pride event in Asia. For many, it was a celebration of identity and solidarity.
We don't have things like this back in our country, so we just come here to, kind of be ourselves and be free, I guess.
Flying in from as far as the US and Europe, many foreign attendees joined the event to show support for a global community of LGBTQ people.
In the UK right now, there's a huge backlash against particularly the trans community. So this is why it's so great to see a huge unity of people in Taiwan coming together, supporting our trans siblings.
Taiwan has been a leader in Asia in terms of granting rights to same-sex couples. And in 2019, it became the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage. This year marks 2 new major policy changes in Taiwan. One enabling same-sex couples to adopt, and another allowing Taiwanese nationals to marry a foreigner of the same sex, regardless of the legality of the union in their partner's home country. But campaigners say the fight for full equality isn't over yet, and that there are still issues to be addressed.
But there are definitely have some unfinished things. For example, in Taiwan, LGBTI couples can get married but cannot do IVF or reproduction treatment in Taiwan, in our own country. So that's something we still need to fight in the following future.
With Taiwan's presidential elections just months away, advocates will be taking a hard look at candidates' LGBTQ policies and pushing for more queer representation in the government. Vice President and leading presidential candidate Chingga joined in the parade. He's the highest-ranking politician in Taiwan to attend Pride.
我在这里要跟所有的好朋友说明，婚姻平权并不是终点，婚姻平权只是台湾平权文化的起点。未来我会跟大家站在一起，在多元同行的路上一起迈进。
The leading opposition parties, the Kuomintang and Taiwan People's Party, also sent representatives to the parade. But campaigners say just turning up isn't enough.
To reveal their support, to show, to support with the action would be very good choice. And but actually, you need to count down the actual plan or actual policies.
People have been participating in Pride events throughout the month of October, including the Trans March, an LGBTQ charity bike ride, and the grand finale, Taiwan Pride. And as you can see, the people here have gone all out for the big day, but campaigners say that LGBTQ Pride is something to be celebrated all year long. Klein Wang, Tiffany Wang, and Reese Ayres for TaiwanPlus.
Now, between Pride and Halloween celebrations, Taipei streets were packed this weekend. But that didn't stop a group of migrant workers from raising their voices to protest poor labor conditions here. Joyce Zheng has details.
It's the end of October, but these are not Halloween costumes for those wearing them. Behind the white sheets and ghostly faces are migrant workers who say this is a reflection of their grim working conditions in Taipei. Chanting "No treat, only trick," the small group of protesters gathered outside the capital's main transport hub, just a short walk away from the presidential office and other government buildings. They're calling attention to Taiwan's poor track record in its treatment of migrant laborers, with stories of exploitation, discrimination, and abuse being common.
他们今天的扮成鬼，然后集结在这里，他们想要跟各位表达的是，我一个人做不到。 但是我希望可以集结所有人的力量，我们一起呼吁台湾政府。
Taiwan relies significantly on migrant labor, with more than 700,000 working in industries like manufacturing, fisheries, and healthcare. And that number is expected to rise as the country edges closer to becoming a super-aged society, where 1 in every 5 people will be over 65. Many of the people now caring for Taiwan seniors are from abroad. But unlike neighbors Japan and South Korea, Taiwan only has official labor agreements with 4 countries: Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. And though meant to help these migrant workers, many of the officers assigned to support them don't speak their local languages, leaving the workers to rely on third-party brokers, who they say take advantage of that dependence.
Karena setiap kali saya pindah majikan, saya selalu harus membayar job. Dan bayar job itu selalu sangat tinggi sekali, 75.000 NT dolar. Sangat berat sekali, 10.000 aja berat, apalagi 75.000 NT dolar.
The Labor Ministry has said they're setting up ways for migrant workers to negotiate their contracts directly with employers and the government, an old promise that has yet to be fully realized. Though this protest may not have gained as much traction as other events this Halloween weekend, the reality migrant workers face is much more harrowing. Delphine Chen and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us here on What's Up Taiwan. I'm Eric Gao. We'll see you later.